ATV-TALK, the podcast. Sit down with your host industry professional, Leonard Duncan, as the men and women from the ATV world bring their behind-the-scenes stories to life. Every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And remember, dream big. It could be your story one day.
Duncan Technologies International. More than 33 years in the industry building racing programs and ATVs around the world. We build winners.
How you doing today, Doug?
Good. How are you?
Well, I just wanted to welcome you here today, ATV Talk, and talk a little bit ATV racing, a little bit of ATV industry, a little bit of Doug Eichner. You know, where you come from, what you're about, where you've been, what you're doing now.
I don't know. Don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what's going on. Nope. Just been enjoying life. Spent a lot of time with my boy Devin and my girlfriend Robin. We do a lot of hiking and mountain biking, and of course going to the desert and riding the sand. Me and Devin, and having a lot of fun there. And
so you've never stopped riding?
Oh no, probably never will.
Do you prefer? Because I know you have a two-wheeler as well. Do you prefer the two wheels or the four still?
Man, I really like the two-wheeler, but I feel more comfortable on the quad, and then the UTV is fun for a little while, but I'd still prefer to be on the quad or the dirt bike.
When you were racing the quads and then transitioned into the UTVs, is it the same for you, or is there a massive difference?
I would say it's not a massive difference. There's quite a bit of difference. The big difference is that you got to be a little more gentle on the UTVs, because if you run them too hard, they break really easy, pretty much.
So you can outdrive the car very
pretty
easy.
much, yeah. That's pretty much what I did most of the time, was outdrive the car or run out of talent, one of the two. It was either checkers or wreckers for me on the UTVs.
If we go back in time a little bit, you raced motorcycles as a young man, and you also raced three-wheelers.
Yep. I started racing motorcycles when I was 8 years old. Went to my home track, which was Washington motocross track, and raced motorcycles up until the first ATV came out. Not the first one, the first 250R to ATV three-wheeler.
In 81?
No, 80. The one I had was the 86 250R.
Yeah, you got the second year of air cooled.
Yeah.
Or water cooled.
Water cooled, yeah. Second year water cooled.
In 81, they came out in air cooled.
Yeah.
With a drum brake.
Yeah.
For all the people that don't understand three-wheelers and where we are with history, you know, there's a lot of people that understand how far back this goes. And I mean, you rolled into the water cooled era of the three-wheeler.
Yeah. And I was racing 125 Pro on a dirt bike, and borrowed a friend's 250 to race 250 Pro also, and was out practicing one day, just caught a rut on a jump wrong, and like did the biggest knack pancake, flattened out the bike that they do nowadays, like no big deal. But back then it was a big deal. Ended up crashing, dislocating my shoulder. And so there I am, 135 pounds, and I'm trying to figure out how to pick this bike up with 250 dirt bike with a dislocated shoulder.
Back when they were made out of steel.
Yeah, when they were they were boat anchors. And I could see my house, and if it was my bike, I would have just left it and walked home. But since it wasn't my bike, I really couldn't do that. So I ended up finally getting it picked up and then getting it started, and I rode it home and told my dad to go, hey, I think I dislocated my shoulder. And he goes, oh, he looked at it, and he goes, and he was an EMT at the time. He looked at it and said, yeah, I think we need to go to the hospital. So we jumped in the old truck and drove to the hospital. And that pretty much ended my two-wheeler career. I pretty much had crashed enough on a two-wheeler. I broke my leg several times on a two-wheeler. Collapsed the lung and broke 2 ribs, and
This is starting to sound like a portion of your ATV career as well.
Well, I rode ATVs a lot longer, but not faster. But so then I got I gave the guy back his 250, and I actually sold my 125 and didn't do anything for 5 or 6 months, mainly because I'm healing up. And then I was bored to death, so I bought me a 250R three-wheeler and just had fun on that. I think it was so fun just to play ride and stuff. We get snow up there, and I took a set of car chains and cut them down so it fit on the knobbies, and it iced over up there, and it was just, I mean, the snow was about 2 feet deep, and you could ride right on top of it, and with the car chains on it, man, that 250R would go like a bat out of hell in a straight line. And couldn't turn very good, but it went bat out of hell in a straight line. I throw a rooster tail about 20 feet up in the air. It was so cool. I'd go around town. The cops were chasing me. They couldn't catch me. It was so much fun. And then I ran into a guy at WKO Lumber Mill where I worked. And I rode my 250R to work a bunch of times because it was real close to the house. And after I graduated high school, and so I was
And what year was this?
This was 86, 87.
I just want everybody that's listening to realize there were ATVs before 2000.
Yeah, yep. And then he was an electrician there at WKO, kind of a new guy. I had never really seen him before. And he comes up and goes, "Hey, is that your three-wheeler downstairs?" And I'm going, "Yeah." It's because I parked it right underneath where I worked. I ran it was called the big horizontal resaw. And mostly got most of the crap wood to resaw and did like 2x4s or maybe 1x4s mostly and stuff like that. So, but it was a pretty hectic job and pretty loud. But anyway, he goes, "Hey, I belong to the Hood River Three-Wheeler Club and we're getting ready to go to Sand Lake. You want to go with us?" And I'm going, I didn't know the guy from Adams. So I said, "Oh, well, yeah, sure. Why not?" So he gives me the address to his house and whatnot and his phone number and says, "Well, come up Friday and we'll load up and go to Sand Lake." And so I go, "Okay." And so I drove up to Hood River and met him at his house, and we loaded my thriller up on a trailer and stuff. And then we drove downtown, and he wanted to stop at the bank and get some money out of the bank machine. So he stopped at the bank, and he's over there fiddling around, and I'm going, "What's he doing? How did it take so long?" And finally he comes back shaking his head and going, "Man, that damn bank machine ate my gas card." I'd look at him and go, "Oh shit, what did I get myself into?" But the bank machine took his gas card, so he didn't have any gas cards. But we went to Sand Lake and we had a great time with the Hood River Club, and I rode around with those guys for a couple years, just play riding, having fun, and got the itch again. And so Washougal was just starting to race quads and thrillers, and my buddy Kevin had a quad, and we decided that we would go down one Sunday and race Washougal on a thrillers. And so the night before, I think it was a Friday night because I was working swing shift at that time. And the Friday night, and actually it was during the day. I was working days then. Yeah, never mind. I smashed both my hands with a forklift because it broke down and I was trying to fix it, and smashed both my hands and broke both my middle fingers and smashed the other ones out. They were all bloody. So I had both my hands in kind of casts. And so I couldn't go race Sunday. So Kevin borrowed my thriller because it had a pipe on it and had better tires and whatnot. And he went down there and crashed and broke his collarbone. So I sold the thriller like the next week and bought a 250R and started racing 250Rs. And that was the best fun bike I had, and got involved with Bart Fanninstill at Oregon Motorsports and Arlen Lehman at LRD. Got involved with those guys, and then they started taking me around to we started going to loc races, as I have been doing already, and then as we got further along, we started coming down to San Diego and California and doing races down here, and then we got into the Mickey Thompson series and started racing the Mickeys, and it's kind of when I ran into you guys, Duncan Racing.
Yeah, Bart was a big customer of Duncan Racing's at the time.
Yeah.
And Arlen was friends with Lauren, or spoke to Lauren quite a bit on the phone. So there was a relationship there. And I believe Bart contacted Lauren about sponsoring you, didn't he? I think that was originally how it set up.
Yeah, I do believe that's how it was, because I think Bartman thought I could get more help from you guys than Arlen was giving us at the time. But he was just a one-man kind of show, and
right, he was just starting out, just small.
Yeah,
almost kind of like he is now.
Starting over again. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be where you are in your level. How did you become a fabricator?
I just learned how to weld in high school, and for some reason, I could gas weld, and so I built a lot of the LRD pipes, hand comb pipes for Arlen, because that's where I worked for him when I was racing for Arlen and Oregon Motorsports. I built a lot of the hand comb pipes. I built almost way back in 88 and 86 or 87, 88, and 89. I built a lot of the pipes for LRD. Right. And so I gas welded all those, and you kind of pick up things as you're going along, and I learned I already knew how to TIG weld, but I did more TIG welding there, and then the job came available with JP Racing. Yep. So I went over to JP Racing and started racing for JP Racing and LRD and Oregon Motorsports, and I welded like most of his A-arms and swing arms at the time. I did a lot of JP stuff too at the time, did for them. We started getting into the frames too, and later on in that with JP Racing. And so
and he was in Washington or Oregon?
He was in Oregon.
Right.
But that's where Bart and Arlen was too. They were both in Oregon.
And you still lived in Washington?
No, I had moved in with Bartman. I lived with Bart. He had a room downstairs in his basement, and I lived with Bartman and in his house. Him and Janet and Alex, which is his son. And we went and did a lot of things together, racing and stuff like that. And Bart was a really good guy. He
still is a good guy.
Oh yeah.
I don't get to talk to him much, but
yeah, he just lost his dad a couple of weeks ago, so I know how he feels, so been talking to him here and there since that happened. But yeah, he's still a good guy. Still happy old Chuck, happy Chucky Bart. So Chuckle Bart. But
and then Mark from Leggers.
And then once we got tired of getting our paychecks on Fridays from JP Racing, and we would race to the bank and see who could get there first so they could get their checks cashed. Make sure they get there where there's still some money in the bank. And JP Racing started going, filing Chapter 11 or something like that, and going out of business and whatnot. So I had heard of Lager in California, and so I called up Mark Lager and talked to him a little bit, and he said, "How soon can you be here?" And I go, "Well, I'll be down next week." And so I tied up my loose ends up in Oregon and in Washington, and packed my little Toyota pickup up with the quad and whatever else I could get in it, which was
that red Toyota pickup you used to have?
My red Toyota pickup, yeah. Yep. And whatever else I could get in there, which is not much, with a short bed Toyota with a extra cab and
a quad in the back.
So then drove to California and been here since.
and that was 92.
Yep, 92 when I moved down here.
And we started sponsoring you in 92 then, because you started with Lager and then you started coming to us in 92 as well. And that's when you and I started working together, was back then.
Yeah, it was easier to have the motor builder here in California where I was and helping me out with everything I needed help with. Yeah,
and it was all new because we were doing Mickey's mostly, but yet we would still go back and do some nationals.
Yeah.
And I was working with you and Lauren was working with Earhart.
Yep.
You know, back in the fun days when I think it was a totally different style of racing and a totally different group of people. You know, I mean, I can't say any of the people that I met now are bad, but it was pretty cool back then.
Yeah, it was more, I don't know, I want to say out having fun. You know, a lot of people didn't really take it that serious as a lot of the riders do nowadays. They train, you know, almost every day, and you know, a lot of the quad riders and stuff train every day, and the dirt bike guys, and you know, a lot more training than what we did back in the days. And I mean, I'd be lucky if I rode twice a week back practicing, trying to stay in shape. I'd be lucky to do that.
Right.
So just because, you know, had to work and had to make a living, and
ATV racing wasn't paying the bills.
Yeah, and ATV racing just didn't quite pay the bills.
So your championships before 93, which we'll get into the 93 season in a bit, but your championships before that, there was some Golden State stuff.
Yeah, I won a bunch of Golden States and a bunch of stuff up in Washington, Oregon too. Did that. And you and Lauren keep giving me a hard time about not being a mechanic. And I say, well, I won some championships, but I wasn't involved with you guys too. So I can wrench on a bike.
Who was working on your bike then?
I was. So.
That's too funny. Well, it's a different level because it evolved.
Yeah.
It's evolved so much.
It has.
You know, I mean,
a lot. I mean, it's a lot more, you know, it's more factory almost now, but it's still, you know,
it's went back to independent factory. I mean, you still have to have a higher level involvement in building the machine and making the machine, being able to work on them and do some of the development work. Your sponsors, your shot guys, your A-arm guys, your motor guys, all have to be involved with your program now, or it's a struggle. You can't just be an independent guy rolling out there and making it happen.
Yeah, it's really hard to do. Really hard to do it that way. Got to have a lot of help.
Well, back in the old days, the riders were better than the machines. You know, I would have to say that in the early 90s that the riders could ride the machines harder than the machines could handle. And we had to evolve through that. Now I believe the machines are better than the riders. You know, they'll go as fast as you want to turn the throttle, they'll just keep going. You know, however you want to hit the turn or how far you want to jump, it's all there.
Yep. Depends how much skill you have or how big your wheels are.
A little bit of both, right?
Yeah, it helps.
Well, what town did you grow up in Washington?
Little town called Carson, Washington, which is about 45 minutes up the Columbia River from like Portland, Vancouver area.
Beautiful area up there.
Yeah, it's real beautiful. I totally miss it. I just miss seeing all the green. Down here is a lot of brown. And hardly no rain, but that's one of the reasons I moved out of there, is because I got tired of the rain because it was just too much. It rained all the time, could hardly ride.
I know when we were traveling with the Works series and we'd get to go up there. I remember the first year we were doing Works back in 2002 and we got to go to Washougal. I remember how excited you were.
Oh yeah.
And how awesome it was that I got to see your home area, because we got to go and hang out with your buddy Kevin and his family. And we got to, you took me over to your dad's house and I got to see where you grew up. It was pretty awesome. And you showed me around a little bit. I really enjoyed the gorge. I miss those days of racing, because you were always going, you weren't home, but you were going home. You were going someplace where you were always welcome. And everybody was nice, and it was pretty awesome. Yeah,
and for most part, when the weather was nice up there, you couldn't beat it. It was, wasn't too hot, but it was nice and warm, and yet all nice green trees around, and the air, you can't see the air. So down here in California, you see the air when you breathe it and breathe it out. And so, but yeah, it was definitely refreshing to go back home.
I really enjoyed it up there. As you roll through your your racing career, and we went back into the 80s and talked about some of your 3-wheeler and 250R days, you got to transition from the 2-stroke to the 4-stroke. You even rode and won a Mickey Thompson race on a Banshee, which nobody ever thought could ever happen. And that was in 95.
Yeah. That's the third race on that bike on the Banshee. We second or third one.
I think that Banshee was the best legger Banshee ever built.
It was.
It was awesome.
Yes, it was. I wish I still had that bike.
We did we won a lot of races on that bike.
Yeah, we did.
3
championships and 1 Mickey's and pretty much the same thing. We ran over not exactly the same, but close to the same. We ran in Pont de Vaux and
yep, it was similar.
Yep,
similar. The intakes were a little different, and the shocks evolved in time. Some of the chassis setup changed a little bit from, PEP shocks to White Powers. I don't know what other brand did we run? I ran some Oleans on there, didn't they?
No, I don't think we ever had Oleans on there. We went to Axis after White Power, I think, didn't we? Or Custom Axis?
It might have been Custom Axis.
Yeah,
I think so. It might have been. Because I think it was PEP and then White Power. Because I remember we would shake our heads because the White Power guys would work on those things. And that Banshee worked really good with those White Power shocks on there. Oh, the 250R didn't work that bad either. I mean, it got you, that year, it got you number 5 in the Nationals.
Yeah, and the only reason I got number 5 is because I couldn't TT. I mean, I could motocross really good, but they combined the TT and the motocross together. So
you say that, but you podiumed on the TTs
once or twice.
You did it twice. I mean, you'd win on the Banshee, and you podiumed on the 250 in Boyd. No, you podiumed in Danville, Virginia.
Well, I started to pick it up. I mean, my mechanic, he got a little smarter on setting up the bike and how he had to set up the sway bar and stuff like that. I mean,
well, you had to teach your mechanic how to read.
It was like beating a rock on another rock, but we finally got some sense into him. But he did a great job. And we were both at a learning curve as far as TT racing went. We both didn't know hardly anything about it, and it was that, like I said, a learning curve for both of us to figure out how to make the bikes run really good. Where Shane Hitt and Timmy Farr and those guys were
they were miles in front of us.
Yeah, they were miles in front of us
because they had raced TT or dirt track their whole lives, and it was second nature. And they had people in their groups that had done it and had information on it, and we were West Coast guys that didn't have anything to do with it and didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, we were definitely behind the 8 ball on that part.
Learning how to set a sway bar up and learning how to do some things like that.
What tires to run and what air pressure and just how to set up the shocks and keep the bike nice and low and
level.
Yeah.
So you're getting traction
the whole time. Yep.
That was probably our most challenging. I think was most challenging portion about it was the TT portion, because every time we went to a motocross track, you were competitive.
Yeah. Yeah. I always did good on the motocross tracks. And like I said, I was, top 5, if not on a podium, or on top of the box even. So
if you had to go back to a memorable race, whether it be the open class or whether it be the 250 pro class, which one was your most memorable?
Far as back east,
yeah.
Well, I guess it pretty much has to be Redbud, where I won the Open Pro class and the 250 Pro class.
Mount Morris.
Mount Morris. Okay, I think
Redbud is where we went to the hospital.
That's where we went to the hospital. Yeah.
not to change it up on you, Doug,
but yeah, Mount Morris. That's what it was. I liked that track. I really did, and we did really good there all the time. I every time I think of that, I think of winning both classes and Gary Denton saying, "I ate so much dirt that race, I don't think I'll have dinner." And I just thought that was the funniest thing I ever heard.
Here's where we got to say goodbye to producer Eli.
Nice seeing you again. Been too long.
Come back. We can't stay so long.
Oh yeah. See you later.
Thank you very much, man. Yeah, that was a great day. I remember as we went through the process of testing that day, because you made me earn every bit of that first place. Because when we got there, we started changing things on the bike, and we went through motor combinations and pipe combinations. I think we changed motors a couple times. I know I changed the pipe freaking at least 10 times, because you wanted to try everything in the trailer, and that just wasn't Doug. Usually we rolled it out of the trailer and raced what it was. And that day you just had something under your saddle. You wanted a different combination. And we put a combination on that bike, from what I remember, that we had never ran, with a different carburetor and a different exhaust pipe. And we never ran that combination again. It was the only place, and it paid off.
Yeah, you used to just give me the bikes and say, "Run them, boy," and I wouldn't have, didn't have really anything to say, and so
unless it was bad.
No, I didn't even say anything was bad. I just made it work. I had to.
That we were talking to Garen Fuller back an episode or two before, and he got taught how to ride stock suspension and stock A-arms, and you did too as well. So the evolution into actually suspension that worked was a great thing. And then you went and rolled it into a Lager chassis with long travel shocks and a CR500 link and a totally different handling machine from what a stock 250R was.
Yeah. Just like, saying back a while ago, where the machine has advanced so much now, where, it can do whatever the rider wants it to do, and has more. The rider, has to be able to ride it, because the bikes are so much faster and work so much better nowadays.
Well, you've got to transition from, like we said earlier, you transitioned from the 2-stroke era with the 250R, the Banshee, into the 4-stroke, where you rode a KFX 450 and a KFX 700 for a season in works. And then you transitioned into the 0405 Honda. And that's, you also rode up to the different motor combination in the 06 version Honda. Into a KTM. Well, you rode Polaris and KTM, so you've had a full gamut. I think you even rode a Suzuki at some point in there too, didn't you?
Rode that Kawasaki 900. Was that thing?
700.
The 700.
You won Washougal on
I won a works race on that 700 Kawasaki in Washougal.
Automatic belt drive.
Yep. One gear, get on it and go.
Yeah. It was a mud race.
Yeah,
I remember that day. We're struggling to figure out what we're going to do, because the water was so bad, and the only one that was protected that we felt would live through the muck was the 700. You probably would have won on the 400 as well, but it would have been a struggle because of the thickness of the mud and the water that was on the course that day.
Yeah, it nearly gets soupy and wet and heavy mud up there.
And they started us at the bottom of the hill.
Yeah.
And you had to ride up through the muck. And I don't remember if you hole shotted it.
Yeah, I hole shotted it.
Yeah, because the thing was a tractor. I loved that bike.
Because it was a hand on the helmet, out of gear with the bike running, and then you just put it in gear and go, which...
You were already in gear.
I was already in gear. I'm sorry, I can't take it out of gear. Yeah. So when the flag dropped, I left. Ended up hole shotting it and leading that whole race.
It was a great day, because Cycle News magazine posted a picture of it with you winning, and it's a motorcycle magazine, and the Kawasaki guys had it put on the cover of the magazine, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, they were pretty happy. That big old tank won the race. And
yeah, I got to race him the next year, when you were transitioned to the Honda 450, and I rode the Kawasaki 700 the whole season, which I ended up getting second in points. But it was a great learning curve, and it was a fun machine to ride, other than when I wrecked one in Utah and brought it home in pieces. But that was just a quick little easy tip over, and just destroyed the whole bike.
Yeah, they're a little big and heavy. They turn over, they get breaking things real easy.
Yeah, they broke the wheel off of it, and I'm looking at it trying to figure out how to get it in the back of the truck, and Doug just starts it up and drives it up all broken, just drove it right up into the truck, and the truck's all shaking, and thinking we're gonna freaking lose the truck because we had to stand one up. We took two 700s with us. I think you rode one the same day that I did, and we had to stand one up and drive the other one in the back, and we drove the broken one into the back of the truck and tied everything down and drove home from Utah.
Yeah, we put many miles on the road together. That's for sure. That was a lot of fun too. I actually really enjoyed driving and traveling and seeing different parts of the world and the country, and driving was one of the things I enjoyed also.
Oh yeah, well, we got to drive back in through Tennessee and into Texas, and we got to go to Michigan. There were so many cool places. We got to go to New York, upstate New York, Oceana.
Yeah.
We had that big money race.
Yeah.
I mean, there was some lot of cool things that went on. If you had to go back and rate some of the machines that you rode, comparing, the old school technology to the new school, where do your feelers come out in bikes that you liked and didn't like, and would that Banshee match up to your Hondas that you ride, or does the KTM overshine everything? I mean, you got to ride a Lobo 250R, you got to ride a Lager 250R. I even think you rode a Banshee with R mods on it that wasn't an aftermarket frame. It was a stock frame. I think you did some work on some races on one of those as well.
Well, we did those on the Pont de Vaux, where it was
all standard
frame. The Pont de Vaux races we did. I mean, there were so many good bikes. I mean, at the point in time, when the 250R first came out, I just loved the bike, and it was so much fun. And the two-stroke, I want to say, kind of on and off light switch that they were compared to the four-strokes nowadays. I enjoyed the 250Rs. They were the great bike at the time. And then when we rode the Banshee, which was a light switch, except for when I had Duncan Racing, do the motor for me and actually almost like detuned it a little bit, so it wasn't such a light switch, so that it didn't light up the tires on the TT track or the motocross track, or so it got traction and went. The Banshee was a fun.
Do you think that change in the power was due to the way that the pipes were built, so that would give it more roll-on four-strokey power?
That, and I think the way that Lauren ported it too, and did the carburation on it too, and all that made a difference. But the Banshees were a fun bike to ride too. They didn't handle as good as the 250Rs, except for the Lager Banshee that I had. It was designed off the 250Rs, and so it handled really well. And it had a zingy motor in it that was just a rocket ship. It was fun to ride. And then nowadays you get into the four strokes, and they have evolved just so much nowadays. And I really enjoy the four strokes now. I have a 250R, Lobo 250R, and I don't even hardly ride it just because I enjoy riding the four strokes better.
Do you think the evolution of the four stroke rolling in off the two strokes, from 2003 where you won a works title on a 250R to 2004 you won it on a KFX 400 to rolling into 2005 when you were on a Honda 450R? Well, excuse me, I'm off on my years. It's 2002 you won the 250R on the 250R. 3 you won the KFX 4. 2004 you won it on a 450R, and 5 you won it on a 450R. Do you think rolling from the two-stroke era into the four-stroke extended your career?
Sure. I mean, like we said, I mean, I would write about anything and everything and make it work. Whatever you guys would give me, I'd write it. And I just, I love to race, and I love to go out and ride, and that's just one of the things that kept me going, was just the enjoyment of being out there and having to race against other people, and the challenges of going out and winning and beating them. The camaraderie people that you meet at the track too. And most people are always nice and fun to talk to. And
your favorite track of all time? Don't say Washougal because that's cheating, because that's your home track. And you've traveled from coast to coast. You've been overseas. You've raced, in other countries. You've raced in Mexico in the desert. I don't know if did you get to race in Canada?
No, I never did race in Canada.
But you got to go to New Zealand, I believe it was, didn't you?
Yeah, went over there.
And you raced in France.
Raced a bunch in France. I don't know. Probably have to go back to Mount Morris. Is one of my favorite tracks, just because I won both the Open Pro and 250 Pro there.
They had that. They don't have it anymore, but they used to have those 3 huge tabletops in a row, and you'd come right to the exit of the track, the driveway to go to the starting line and exit the track. Where the finish line was, there was a tabletop, and you'd land and you'd make a left-hand turn, almost a U-turn, and it was right there at the exit of the track. So when the race ended, you'd roll off that jump and roll right back into the pits. And I remember more of the open class. I mean, I got hit in the throat with a dirt clod in the 250 Pro race and couldn't talk.
God, that was a nice day.
Thanks, Doug. But I remember when we would stand up there and root him on over those big tabletops, and you'd throw a knack, because that's when the knack was in, and you'd throw a knack, and everybody that was still at the racetrack would cheer and get excited. You even got some of the pro guys in the 250 class would come out and watch that, because that Banshee, when you rolled the throttle on, it made the bitchinest noise. I mean, I just love that deep, throaty 2-stroke grunt that the Paul Turner silencers made.
Exactly. It sounded so good. And it didn't sound like any other Banshee, really. It almost sounded like a 250R on roids, It sounded cool. And it went. And I enjoyed they had that step up. It was kind of like a step up. It was like you went down in the big gully, and it was like a 3-tier. It was a triple uphill almost. It was quite the leap back in those days. And then you made a sharp right after that and went back down the hill. That was one of the funnest jumps back in the day on that track, because it was a challenge to get up over it with a 250R, and not so much with the Banshee.
I don't think you ever had a challenge on a jump with a Banshee, did you?
No, not really. That thing worked so well, and I always had plenty of horsepower to get out of the corner quick enough to get enough speed to get over about anything I wanted to.
In your days of racing, you've had, your fierce competitors. You and Mark Earhart were fierce competitors, even though you ran under the same tent for a while. You had, Charlie Shepard in the day, obviously Tim Farr and Shane Hitt and some of the guys from back east. But then you roll into the modern day and you get to guys like Joe Bird, who's an old schooler, a new schooler. I mean, he was around for quite a number of years. You had some run-ins with him. And then you get out here onto the West Coast and you have Josh Fredericks, who you and him had some epic battles in the works races. Where's the guy that lines up for you as the fiercest competitor, or the guy that you wanted to beat more than, I know you wanted to beat everybody, but that one guy that sticks in your craw still today?
That'd probably have to be Joe Bird. That guy ran into me more times in one race than I've ever been hit in the whole year. And every time I tried to pass the guy, he would run into me. And so, yeah, I just never. And then I pay him back once, and he calls us even when I ran him off the track once, and he said we're even now. I'm going, really? Okay, you must have lost count or something, because I didn't. But
I could see the look in your face that you're still having a little bit of animosity there.
Yeah, he was just too big for his britches. He just thought he was quite the quad rider and showman and whatnot. But I mean, he was a good rider. Not going to take that away from him. He was, actually very well.
He won two 250 titles, or two pro titles back back east in the GNC. So
yeah.
Later in his career too, it wasn't early.
Yeah. But I have to say, one of the riders I have admired the most, and I think a lot of people do, is the old homo Gary Denton. That guy, anybody would he win 8 championships back east in the nationals, and it's like, wow, that's pretty impressive. And I think one of the first times I got to race against him was in a Mickey's race, and I crashed into him, took him out.
Does he remember this?
I hope not, but he probably does. And I always felt so bad. I went over and said sorry. He was in our heat race, and I caught him, and I was trying to pass him. And this was back when they had us jumping over the barriers, had the little dirt mound, and it was a real kicker jump out of a corner. And I don't know if I got into him or we got into each other, but as soon as I went across that barrier kind of side by side and caught and connected in the air, and we both came down and crashed. And I jumped back up and jumped back on my bike and said sorry and took off and still qualified to make the main, and he didn't make the main, and that's what made me even feel worse because he didn't make. He traveled just as far as I had to come to this Mickey's, and I took him out, and he didn't make the main event, so I felt really bad about that. But I can remember watching him in the Mickey's and stuff, and going, because we'd have qualifying, and back in the days, qualifier. Oh, he was, and you would watch him ride, and you would go, man, he's not that fast. He's not that fast at all. I go, that's not going to be a good time. What? He got the fastest time? And just because Gary was so smooth on the bike, it didn't look like he was going fast, but it's that old saying, smooth is fast. And Gary had that down to a T, and he would, that's why I try to emulate him and do the same thing and try to ride smooth and like he did. And I could do it a little bit, but not anywhere near as what he could do. I'm kind of bulldog my quad most of the time, I would say. But
legends of the sport, the guys before you, the guys after you so far, who do you like nowadays? I know you still follow it a little, not as much, but a little.
Wyndham and Hendrick, they're phenomenal. And Wyndham's he's a big boy, and he's getting up there, and he's still charging out there. So he's doing really good, and I'm just, impressed by him.
Hendrick's a little bitty guy.
And Hendrick's a little guy, and rides a super fast Honda and stuff. But yeah, I'd have to say, Wyndham is he's pretty amazing and pretty outstanding, and quite the athlete and quite the quad rider, to be out there still charging hard on the Yamaha. So
who do you want to see win the GNC championship this year? I know that there's the coronavirus thing going on, and they're racing next weekend, and they just had a woods race, a GNCC this weekend, and I don't know the final on that, but who you favoring this year for GNC?
Well, me, of course.
Well, you got to get a ride back there first, and somebody to build you a bike.
I think I can find somebody to build me a bike. Just got to get a ride back there would be the hardest part. But, I don't know. I'd have to say, I'm sure it's going to be a good battle. There's so many good and fast riders back there nowadays, and young guys coming up. And I haven't paid that much attention. I don't know a lot of the names anymore, the young riders and stuff that are coming up. I probably should. But I've watched a little bit on TV here and there when they show it, and still like to enjoy that and remember the good old days. But I'd have to root for Wyndham just because he's the old guy, and kind of just rooting for the old guy to do good.
There's got to be some respect there.
Yeah,
Hendrick's a pretty fierce competitor.
Yes, he is. He is.
The kid works really hard. From the things I hear and the things you see on social media, he's on the gas. Let's talk a little bit about Pont de Vaux. You've been there many times.
Only 11.
But you still hold the win record.
Do we?
Yeah, you do.
No, we.
We.
Exactly.
Okay, well,
there you go.
But one of the years that you went over there with Travis Spader, he got injured.
Yeah.
And this was a moment for you winning my brother's heart, as he still to this day can't get over how much you gave to that race that day, because your partner couldn't ride and you rode 3/4 or more of the race when you probably should have bagged it in. And on your last lap, you were as fast as you were when you got on the first lap. And
it's because I was ready for
near passed out when the race.
I was ready
over.
for it to be over. Go last lap. I can do it. I'm gonna finish. No,
I don't remember what place you guys got that year. I think you got second or third.
I think we got third.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, that was a tough race. That was probably one of my most grueling races. And yeah, Travis got hurt and he couldn't ride, and I would stay out there and ride as long as I could, and yeah, one time I came in after, I think it was the first session. No, it wasn't the night session. It must have been after the first session, because I rode pretty much the whole first session, I think, almost, and it was hot and it was warm, and I hadn't drank enough water and wasn't really prepared to do that much riding, and yeah, I came off the bike and I just found some shade, and I just went towards the shade and laid down and just wanted to relax, wanted to catch my breath and try to recoup, because I knew that we had 2 more sessions to go. So,
well, I remember, you and I've watched some of your epic battles, and I've seen you in action, and I have always had the utmost respect for you. But to hear it from my brother, who doesn't really give accolades to anybody ever, speak so highly of that ride and so highly of you after that, the gas tank that you have and the heart that you have to never quit, has always stuck with me as something that was a pretty awesome thing. And I would have wished I could have been there. I was very fortunate in '93 to be there for your first Pont de Vaux win, and you and Mark Earhart. And with 12 minutes to go in the race, I held up "You're the champion" plaque to you. I don't even know if you remember that, but when I gave you the pit board, the race was over. There was 12 minutes to go on the clock. We had 12-minute lead or a 12-lap lead, and we couldn't be beat. 3-minute lap times. They just couldn't beat us. It just was impossible. And no matter what, you could have got off and pushed it, and we would have still won. And nobody at that given time believed that we dominated that much and that well. And most of the times when we did have victories over there, they were domineering.
Yeah. I mean, most of the guys I rode with over, me, Sweet Tart, Mark Earhart, we definitely dominated those guys every time we were together. We were a good team over there. We fed off each other, and I think he was trying to beat my fastest time most of the time, and I was trying to beat his fast time, and it just made for a good team and a good camaraderie for us out over there, and yeah, we definitely put it to him quite a few times over there. Me and Mark.
Do you remember how many times you rode with Mark?
I want to say 4 or 5, I think. Maybe 4.
Because you've ridden with Paul Holmes. You've ridden with Mark Earhart. You've ridden with, I can't remember his name, the little short, bald guy. Yeah.
Paul Winrow. And John, John Mitchell. Rode with John Mitchell. And
did you ride with Paul Holmes, or was it John Mitchell?
John Mitchell.
I confused him. Yeah,
John Mitchell. And who else did we ride with over there? Well, we ended up winning it. We won it 7 times.
Right.
So
yeah.
And like you said, that has not.
I think you won with each guy. You won with Mark.
Yeah.
You won with. The only one you didn't win was Travis Spader, because he only went 1 year, to my knowledge.
Yeah, I do believe that's right.
Yeah. So Winrow and you won. I know that. And in 96 that we took first, second, and third, which was a pretty amazing feat.
Yeah.
Take three bikes.
Phenomenal year to
take the whole podium.
Take the whole podium off.
Yeah, I mean, it was, those were some memorable things. And I wasn't even supposed to go to that 93 race. It was Lauren, and something came up in his life with his soon to be wife or something I don't remember all the details. He bought me a plane ticket and sent me over there, and we had a great time. Martin Fletcher and
yeah, those Philip, Charles, and Martin, they were always so fun to hang out with, and we'd get first started going over there. And they would come pick us up in a big charter bus. I mean, a Greyhound bus, a lot nicer, one that people travel along, along the roads and whatnot. And they used to come pick us up with that. But after we started winning and kicking their butt, they stopped doing that. I don't really understand why. But
well, the French promoter in the beginning paid the Americans to come.
Yeah,
and then they started getting offended because you guys kept dominating, and now you go over there, they sound test you, they freaking penalize you. I mean, the last time I rode in 2005, I got a 2-minute penalty because I didn't wear gloves.
Yeah,
I mean, really, give me a break. Why am I getting a penalty? I know in 2001 I went over there with Yamaha of Italy and Alessandro Caminini, and we won first 4-stroke and got 5th overall. And I believe you won that year as well.
Yeah. They started to getting on our cases too towards the last part of the years that we were going over there. They would, shake their finger at us for going down pit road too fast, and then they would, they were giving us a bunch of different guff for stupid little things. I can't remember. There was a couple of little things that they tried to dock us time for, and one of them they did, and the other one we got out of or something for somehow. But yeah, I remember them. They were definitely tired of us coming over there and winning all the time.
What form of ATV racing or racing in general? Because you've raced 3-wheelers, 2-wheelers, 4-wheelers, UTVs. What haven't you raced that I don't know about, or what have you raced, or what do you still want to race? I know you're still pretty young for 100 years old, but
I don't have as much gray hair as you, but
it's all the stress you put me through.
Oh, you never had it so easy. I still enjoy. I mean, it's been 3 years ago we went up to Washougal because they were doing to Washougal.
Washougal, okay, yeah, that's
right. We went up there because they're having a quad cross up there. Yeah. And Devin, my son, has never ridden Washougal, and I wanted to go up there and ride the old track one more time on a quad because they're letting quads. They don't let quads there at Washougal too often, so I wanted to go up there and take Devin up there and let him ride, and I wanted to go up and ride the old track one more time, and I took my quad and I just went to both of them, took Devin's quad. I put 2 of them back at the truck, stood one up like we used to always do, and I flew Devin up there, and I drove all the way up there by myself, and went up there, and we got to race Washougal.
Kid.
Yeah, well, he was in school, so I couldn't take him out of school much, but yeah, we went up there, and just the track was just superb, and it had a little bit of rain and mist in the morning, and then the sun, and then it kind of tapered off, and the sun kind of came out in the afternoon. By the end of the day, they were actually putting water on the track, but there was so much traction. I mean, you would come out of the corners just feathering the clutch because the thing would want to wheelie, and that track was it's just so much fun to ride, and just remember the old days and ride it on a 2-wheeler and stuff like that, and the hill was so muddy back in the day that my dad is on a 2-wheeler trying to push me up the hill to get up the hill so we could keep going in the race, and just remember a lot of muddy days there, but a lot of good times there though too, and the sunshine and the track is just so fun to ride.
Do you remember the day that we rocked the works rule book world.
Well, it's every time we went to racing, wasn't it?
Well, I believe if you're bending the rules, you're making headway. And I mean, I don't think we ever broke them, but we sure bent a few.
We've been a couple of them. There's a lot of new rules in the book now. There wasn't back before we started.
I remember Sean Reddish taking me aside and begging me not to do it. And you came up with the idea of studding the tires. So we go to the hardware store and buy. You couldn't stud the tires because we didn't have the right stuff, but we could put self-tapping screws in there. And we had to. What we did is, we're giving away secrets, but I don't think we'll ever have this problem ever again.
No.
The screws were too long, so you had to nip the end of them off and screw them into the tire so that they didn't poke through. They left a more blunt surface in the rubber. When everybody else seen it, anybody that tried to copy us, the only person that tried was Fredericks.
Yeah, and he ended up having 2 flats, I think.
3 flats that day.
And 3 flats that day.
Yeah, he ended up 2 or 3 minutes back. And it was just so muddy. I have a picture of it, of the race. And there's this brown blob with your pit crew. Myself, I'm wearing the red, white, and blue Duncan pit shirt. And there's Kevin there. And there's a couple of your friends there. And everybody's this beautiful green grass, blue tarp, and all the colors are sparkling. And this brown blob, and it's Doug. You were caked with so much dirt. I mean, you picked the only spot on the starting gate that was dry ground all the way to the first turn, and everything else was underwater. And there were so many people so mad about that day.
Yeah, a lot of the motocross track was really good and fun and just awesome dirt, where out in the woods there was a lot of clay, and it was like ice out there. And so that's why I thought, well, it's like ice, we're gonna put some studded tires on. So we just went to the hardware store, like you said, and bought some screws and screwed them in the tires, and to get you around through the woods a lot better, because the clay out there was so slick in the rain, and it was just muddy, and the studs worked great. I can remember coming in at my gas stop, and I was so muddy, I was having trouble sitting on the seat and sliding off. And I tell my buddy Pat, he's got a towel in his hand. I go, "Wipe my ass." And he goes, "What?" I go, "Wipe my ass." And because I was sliding all over the seat, I couldn't stay on the seat. And that's the only time I think I ever had a guy wipe my ass, but it was funny.
He didn't know what to think about that.
He didn't know what to think about that.
I just remember that, Sean was not happy with us. And we had a big riders meeting, and Brandon Brown threw a total fit. And, somebody's going to lose an eye. Well, you got goggles on. Dude, really, I could shoot you with a BB gun and it's not going to break the goggle. So that stud coming out of the tire is not going to hurt you. It's not going to affect your machine. And then the owner of the track come out there and go, "Yeah, we run studded tires here all the time, guys. It's no big deal. We don't care." And
Brandon Brown was always crying about something.
Well, it's just his personality.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't a bad guy. He just didn't understand how it all went sometimes, and he was pissed because he couldn't go as fast as you.
Yeah.
But I kept the bike in the trailer till maybe 30 minutes before the race, before I rolled it out there. And then frickin' all hell broke loose. As soon as I rolled it out, because everybody knew something was up, because we always had the race bike sitting out. Everybody could see it. It's all on display. And I'd prepped it in Kevin's garage the night before and got her all ready. And we got there. I think we got to the track early and put it in the trailer before anybody's seen it. And when we rolled it out there, the crowd swarmed, and the accusations started, and the screaming and the hollering, and the sun was out at that point. And as all this transpires and happens, the cloud cover rolls in, and it starts to rain, and the water had not receded, from the earlier rain. And we go to the starting line, it's pouring down rain, and there was a delay. And I don't even remember what the delay was at this point. I think they had they had some motorcycles stuck out on the course they had to get off, and then they got us going, and you hole shotted it and never looked back. I mean, it wasn't even a race at that point, really. It was after the halfway point, you just cruised to the finish.
Yeah, lost most of the studs, but they served their purpose, and that's all what we needed to have happened.
Yeah, there was a few left. I think we went to a couple races later because we used those tires at a different day, at a different race, and some of the studs were still in there. Gave a good chuckle to everybody, even though you're not allowed to run them anymore.
Yeah.
No works race is allowed to run studs because of that.
Yep. And that was your fault.
Well, hey, you know what? I'll take the blame for any of the good or bad that happened in that era. It's been a real pleasure to sit and talk with you, Doug. I've thought a lot of you and the world of you for many, many years, and had a great run with you from 93 to 2007. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart to come out and sit and talk with me today. And I hope that everybody that's listening to this podcast enjoys it as much as I do. And thank you very much. I hope you come back and talk to us again here at ATV-TALK.
Sure. We need to get, some of the old guys together, like Garen's dad, Brian Fuller, and some of those guys, and all together, and we'll, sit around and talk about the old days too.
Did you ever get to race against Danny Prather?
Yeah, a little bit out in the desert.
Well, and you raced a little bit with Matlock too. So
yeah. That'd
be a good conversation, getting you three together to talk some desert racing.
Yeah, that'd be good. And they beat us by in the best in desert race by, I think it was 14 seconds for the championship. And so, yeah, that's been a bummer, remembering that, just getting beat by 14 seconds at the best in the desert race. But, it's racing. That stuff happens.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
you can't win them all, but I try.
Yeah, you got to try to win them all. Again, thank you very much for stopping by.
Yeah.
And we'll get you in here again.
The team here at ATV-TALK would love your feedback. Please email us at hello@atvtalkpodcast.com.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, don't forget to rate us on all the available platforms and share us with your loved ones. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook for more ATV-TALK news. See you next time.